You are listening to the Effective Statistician podcast, the weekly podcast with Alexander Schacht and Benjamin Pieske designed to help you reach your potential, lead great science, and serve patients while having a great work-life balance. In addition to our premium courses on the Effective Statistician Academy, we also have lots of free resources for you across all kind of different topics within that academy. Head over to theeffectivestatistician.com and find the academy and much more for you to become an effective statistician. I'm producing this podcast in association with PSI, a community dedicated to leading and promoting the use of statistics within the healthcare industry for the benefit of patients. Join PSI today to further develop your statistical capabilities with access to the ever-growing video-on-demand content library, free registration to all PSI webinars, and much more. Head over to the PSI website at psiweb.org to learn more about PSI activities and become a PSI member today. Welcome to another episode of the Effective Statistician. Today I'm super happy to talk with Pietro about large language models. Well, there's probably not so many other things that are so hot at the moment, like large language models. So, Pietro, maybe you can introduce yourself a little bit and speak about how you got connected to large language models.
Well, thanks a lot, Alexander. First, thanks a lot for having me here. It's really a great pleasure and an honor. And yeah, so I am a physicist as a background, and I'm working for Boehringer Ingelheim. And I am part of this machine learning and artificial intelligence app that we have inside the Department of Biostatistics and Data Science. And I have to say, large language models became a huge thing starting from last year. Of course, in the company, there were people working on such things more from the IT and data science level. But since last year, with the advent of ChatGPT, I think we really saw a huge increase of people coming to us asking for use cases and ways on about how to use such models. So in my case, I would say it came on two tracks. One possible use case was to use these models to really make predictions, so to use them like we do with more traditional models. Mm-hmm. And on the other case was more about using these models to become more efficient in what we do. So mm-hmm. for optimized processes, for example, if you have a large knowledge base, how to search into this knowledge base and get insights out of very long documents, for example. Mm-hmm. So I say mainly these two avenues.
When did you personally first get in touch with large language models?
For me, it was with some courses that I had at my university, in which we had some preliminary overview about how these things work and what they do. But I would say the big change happened actually with ChatGPT, because with this tool, OpenAI was really able to put such a model in the hands of everyone. So they really destroyed the barrier, or really put down the barrier that prevented us to access this technology, because of course you can play with all their models and everything, but you need to set up an environment on your computer and download the models and everything. Instead, what they did was really a nice process to democratize this technology. So to me the big change was with the release of ChatGPT, and then of course with all the companion software that came after. So the models for Anthropic and all the others, basically.
Okay. How often do you use ChatGPT in your daily work? No.
I would say every day, every day. And the nice thing, and maybe, this is something we can speak a bit later, is that what I find is of course, they are good for maybe some drafting of emails and documents. But what I see the potential really is to develop applications that are tailored for specific use cases. So the general way in which such tools are presented to us is more about this is a very big knowledge engine, so you can ask everything and get any kind of response. But I think this is a bit limiting. And what I found more helpful is actually to embed such models into our applications. And this is something that we are exploring currently in our group, so that we can help people with specific needs, so that they can use more as a silver bullet than just a very general tool that, of course, it's nice to use and can provide some help for creative tasks. But when it comes down to do, I would say, real work, then we need to be more careful and so to build some kind of infrastructure around the model. So the response is every day and in different ways, I should say. Yeah.
Cool. So in terms of these specific use cases, what kind of specific use cases do you see out there, and especially when it comes to our world of clinical development, pharmaceutical research, and that kind of area?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a very good point. So what we see a lot is people that really have to navigate this complex knowledge database that usually is made out of documents that are not so easily searchable, like PDFs or presentations. And then what we can do with such models is really to build a system in which we can ask questions to such complex knowledge base and have our answers rewritten in a very understandable language. I think this is one of the major use cases that we cover. And the nice thing is that we can tailor this engine to very specific use cases. So we can provide to the models only the documents that we need to search and to interrogate. And from those, we can retrieve the information that we need. Other cases that we saw we also are exploring ways to use such models for data exploration, for example, because we know that these models can write code. And there are ways also to have the computer execute this code, return the output to the models, and you have this kind of loop in which the model is getting the output of its own code and improving the output. So it's iteratively refining the output that it generates. And we are exploring this for doing some data exploration or some preliminary data engineering.
Okay, data exploration. Do you need, really big databases for that? Or is that even already kind of something that is helpful for, let's say, the typical clinical trial with maybe, a few hundred patients? Yeah. Also the second case, because the idea is that these models have been pre-trained using a very large knowledge base. So in the end, you don't need to retrain them on your own specific data. Mm-hmm. Of course, you can do that, but it's not the first thing that you try, I would say. And so you can take advantage of this pre-training to do some more tailored stuff on even on your small data set. So, and then the input would be all the programs that you have already written in-house and train.
Yes, you can do also that. Yeah, if you have already some programs or some scripts that you created, you can ask. Yeah, you can use the model to apply those to your data, but you can also ask the model to refine your scripts. This is something that is an application that I found very useful if you have a piece of code written by someone else. For example, it can be nice to have the model help you with the commenting of the code or to understand what the code is doing. Of course, you have always to check the output of the model and to control, but it gives you a starting point. So yeah, you can also use for that, I would say.
So that's a really interesting application to basically comment, refine code, things like that. How does that work from then a validation point of view? Is that would be something that you would do before you validate the program, and then so that basically becomes part of your general programming technique? Yeah.
No, that's a very good question. And actually, the validation of these methods is something that is still a very active area of research, I would say, because compared to traditional methodologies in which your answer is deterministic, here we have, I mean, once we run a query to the model, we can get outputs that can, first of all, differ from each other when you do multiple calls, but also it can be that they deviate from what is your expected response. And so how to quantify this deviation or the accuracy of the response is really a big, I would say, a big area of research right now. So what we are doing is we are leveraging on some frameworks that have been developed to do that, especially for when you do these use cases in which you want to interrogate documents. There are a suite of metrics that can help you to understand if the output of the model was how good was it actually, and you can quantify a bit the mistakes that they are doing, because they do mistakes, and then you can focus on these errors and try to improve over them. But yeah, the validation of such approaches is really something that requires a lot of thinking, and it depends also on the final application that you have. What I think we are seeing is that we always have to let the user in control. So these tools are very nice co-pilots, but we cannot think about them as end-to-end solutions. We always need to incorporate the user in the process. There is always the need for this human in the loop with such applications.
Yeah, completely agree. I've seen that for myself. Whenever I use it, it's great for creating a first draft, for checking something, for improving something, these kind of things. But it doesn't I can't just put something in there and use it as it is. It always needs to be checked.
Definitely.
So you talked about frameworks for kind of checking that. Do you have something specific in mind that we could walk through a little bit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there are multiple libraries that are being developed and are turning into startups and companies. But yeah, so the first thing is that a lot of frameworks are based on Python so far. Also because I would say the tools to evaluate such models are usually implemented in Python. So it makes sense to keep the same language. But yeah, I'm thinking about different frameworks. There is, for example, one that is called DPVal or Ragas. I would say there are many depending on what you would like specifically to do. But what put them together is the kind of metrics that you can use to evaluate your models. For example, when we do these use cases in which we want to incorporate some existing knowledge in the model, what is usually done is to use a framework that is called retrieval augmented generation. And in this framework, what is generally done is to build a data set of knowledge base that can be your PDF documents about a trial, for example, or some guidelines. Then the idea is that you split these documents into pieces that are also called chunks. You can find them also called as chunks. And the idea is that you can build a retrieval system that, based on your query to the LLM, retrieves the relevant chunks from your documents and put these chunks into the context size of the LLM. So we know when we interact, for example, with ChatGPT, we write prompts. These prompts are what ends up into the context size of the model, basically. So the idea is to put in that context size, along with your prompt, so your query, the relevant pieces of information that you get from the documents. And in the end, you have the generation step, in which the model is taking your query, the pieces of documents that were retrieved, and then it generates out of these the final response. So you see there are different pieces in this framework, The first is how you do the retrieval. And for these, there are different ways of doing that. You can have retrievers, so tools that go into your documentation and pick the relevant pieces that work based on keywords. And this is one way of doing things. Another way is to look for a similarity in what is called the embedding space. So the language model family is very wide. So there is not only ChatGPT, but there is really a zoo of models. And some models are being developed to produce this embedding. So the idea of an embedding is to associate to each piece of your document, so to each chunk or piece of text, a number of actually an array of number, a vector of numbers. And this vector of numbers is generated in such a way that it maintains the meaning of your text. For example, if you use one of these embedding models on a text that speaks about animals, you will find that the vector that describes the word cat will be, for example, close by to the vector that describes the word tiger or panther. And it will be a bit far away from the vector that describes the word horse or dog. So the idea is that you put words, or in this case, pieces of text with similar meaning in a similar place in this embedding space. So that when you send a query to your LLM, or to your, in this case, to your retrieval augmented generation system, you end up finding only the relevant pieces of information that you need. So first you retrieve the information, the chunks or the pieces of documents that you need, then you generate, or actually the LLM generates your answer. And so there are these two key steps that needs to be evaluated. And for the retrieval part, I would say is maybe it's a bit easier to evaluate it, because it becomes some kind of classification problem, because we want to extract only the relevant pieces from the knowledge base. So we can have metrics like precision, recall, accuracy, hit rate. Instead, when it gets to generating the final response, then it's where the fun begins, because everything turns down into how do you evaluate accuracy for a statement that is given in natural language. And so
kind of classical statistics, accuracy, all these kind of things work nicely on the embeddings, which are basically numbers and vectors. It gets much more difficult when it works on the natural language statements at the end.
Exactly. So what people are doing is, actually there are different things you can do. One of the things is to use another LLM to evaluate the responses of your knowledge search engine, basically. And with this kind of approach, you will need to some guidelines to the LLM that acts as a judge. And the LLM, following your guidelines, will give an evaluation to the output. And the nice thing about this is that it can be automated, so you can do many tests. On the other side, you will need to evaluate your evaluator. So you will need users that agree with to evaluate the responses of the LLM judge, basically.
So but it's a gold standard. The gold standard is always kind of the challenge.
Yes.
What exactly is a gold standard?
Yes. And again, what we have seen is that it's good to do all of this, but in the end, it's always, again, the user will be the one that gives the final okay. So for these knowledge search engines, the user can make use of this application that retrieves the document that provides a response, but it will be on the shoulders of the user to actually check that the response is truthful. And it can be helped because when we do the retrieval, we can also provide the documents that were used to generate the final response. So it can check also that the information is truly relevant and that the response actually makes sense. So we really encourage people to don't blindly trust the technology, but really to have a critical viewpoint here, because we must not forget that these are language models. So our models of language, these are not information databases.
Really?
So,
Well, in the end, we communicate all the time using language. Yeah. All our kind of usual discussions are based on language and not on, data. So our whole life we use language, and we are completely fine with kind of the shortcomings of that. So I think it's a very, very interesting also philosophical kind of thing, and thinking about what is right, what is wrong, trusting things, all these kind of different things is a very, very interesting perspective. Now, you mentioned kind of the prediction approach using large language models. Can you expand a little bit on that? And do you have any specific use case in mind there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm thinking about some recent literature that we get across to, in which the language models were used, for example, in trials. There are some nice articles about this, and some researchers were using these kind of models to check if the eligibility criteria of patients were met from the patient's notes. This is one example that I found very, very nice, because as we know, this eligibility or exclusion criteria can have a very wide range of variability, and language models actually can go beyond this variability and can help scrutinize if the criteria were met or not. Or the other thing that the models can do is to translate these criteria that, again, are very variable among trials, and they can translate them into queries in database queries that can be, for example, SQL.
Okay, cool. So in terms of that, do you think we could, record a discussion between the patient and the physician, in which they basically talk through all the kind of the protocols, the exclusion criteria and things like that, and use that as a material so that basically all these kind of typical protocol in the exclusion criteria are checked?
Yeah, that would be a nice application. Of course, it has to go through all the ethical considerations and everything, but yeah, that could be potentially something. Or another use case that I've seen is people using such models to support, for example, psychologists when they do their consulting.
Yeah,
because they will have all the recording of the therapy session, and the model can help them to focus on specific area, or can help with summarizing some of the outcomes. So tools that can support what clinicians do, not substitute them, not take away tasks, but let people work more efficiently. This is the way that I'm seeing. Indeed, when I hear people speaking about AI stealing our jobs and all this narrative, this is not really going to happen in my view, at least, because the way all of this technology is conceived is really as a way to support us. And we see, if we completely deploy our our expertise and our knowledge to these tools, they can make very, very bad mistakes. And in a field such as healthcare, this can really be difficult and cumbersome and can produce very, very bad outcomes. So always see these things as tools that can help us support us in what we do, and to which we can maybe give some tasks that are repetitive and that can be automated. But in the end, we'll always have to have the final decision about this.
I think it could be super interesting to actually better understand these much more complex disease areas. I've worked for a very, very long time in neuroscience, psychiatry, and there we have these standard questionnaires. For depression, for anxiety, for schizophrenia, for all kind of different diseases. And they're basically very, very crude ways to measure certain symptoms. And the variability is huge, between different raters, the variabilities, the inter-subject variability is very big. The intra-subject variability is pretty big. Do you think there would be some applications for using, discussions or between the physician and the patient to better characterize these diseases?
Yeah, I think there is a huge potential for these actually. It's a very nice example. Yeah, I'm thinking that one could use models that are trained on more general knowledge, like these GPTs from OpenAI, but one can also think about models that are fine-tuned on a subset of knowledge. Yeah. And in this case, maybe it would be even more beneficial if you fine-tune such models on a more focused area. Yeah. And I really see this as a sparring partner that you can query whenever you want, 24 hours a day. You can get useful insights from them. It's really a way to also to improve your own thinking, I see.
I've yet another area. So we have lots of guidelines out there. Yeah. All these different regulations, all these kind of points to consider, all these kind of different areas. And it's really, really difficult to get an overview across all of them. Do you think it would be a potential use case to have some large language models trained on all that kind of, let's say, regulatory knowledge?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very, very good question. Currently, we're exploring a bit this with guidelines. What I think would make sense is to have like these models embedded inside applications. Mm-hmm. Each of them may be specific to an area, because if you give everything like this very huge database of guidelines, it can be that you provide the model with also information with conflicts. Yeah. With conflicting information, so this of course can alter or can add noise to the final response. But instead, if you are able to work out a specific area in which you want to query the model, and then to supply the relevant guidelines, then of course this could be a nice way of using such tools. And the thing that I see is that there is always a trade-off that we get. Because of course the output of these models is subject to mistakes, to errors, and what we can have is a trade-off between the accuracy that we get out of the response and the speed that we acquire in getting such responses. And sometimes
I think the challenge there is, what do you compare it against? Yeah. So let me say
a good point.
Myself. I put myself in the position of a typical kind of project statistician that designs a study and kind of thinks about all kind of different questions. Yeah. Now, of course, I could, there's a couple of different things I could do. So first is I could purchase an expensive consultant. Yeah. So someone with lots of knowledge, and that costs, don't know, 600 euros per hour or something like this. Yeah. And ask them the questions and get guidance from that person. Another way would be I do the research myself. Yeah. I look into all the guidelines that I kind of find. I, walk through them. I Google a little bit whether I missed something, and that is my kind of reference. And the third way would be, I have some kind of large language model that I created. So all of these kind of three options have pros and cons. Yeah. And we never know. Yeah. What is the, variability if we asked 5 different consultants? Yeah. Will truly have variabilities there. Will they have all the knowledge in mind? Yeah. How available are they? When would I have access to them? If I work for a big company, maybe I have some kind of, some kind of contract in place and I could readily can call these kind of people. Or maybe I have some even in-house. But if I'm working for, let's say, a small or mid-sized company, well, it takes time to set up a contract, all these kind of different things. So I wouldn't necessarily have someone readily available. So I think that's a very, very interesting case to have a look into what is actually the benefit and how much better would large language models be. Yeah, from a speed perspective, probably much, much better. Yeah.
Nice. No, yeah, this is a very good point. And it's actually a point in which, studies from the human sciences can actually help us. Because I think there is a lot of literature and work that was done in the past that can also be adapted to such new knowledge engines. This is one thing, and the other thing is also about benchmarks, because we know that these models are evaluated against general benchmarks that were developed by researchers to classify them. But one thing is how they perform on such general benchmark, and one thing is how they perform on real use cases. So what we really encourage is to build your own benchmark, so that you see how you improve based on what is the current status. That can be like the user going through the information by themselves, or if there is a pool of questions and answers that you can attain from. But it's very important to get a benchmark that is representative of your use case.
So what other big opportunities do you see with large language models that we haven't talked about yet?
I think, one of the biggest opportunities is to improve the way we communicate with each other. We have this in our organization. It's there are different sides, people speaking different languages, and such models can help people that with a very different background to speak to each other. Not just by translating emails, but improving the way also you write. So one big opportunity that is really coming right now is this, improving the way we speak to each other, we communicate to each other. And the other opportunity that I see is really to streamline and for people to just get rid of very repetitive tasks that they do, and they can be automated in principle, so that you have more time for doing things that are more important, that you also enjoy more. And this will not come right away with the current models, but this will probably come with the newer models that come, because what we see right now is one instance of this technology. Currently, almost most of the models are based on this transformer architecture. It will probably be that the newer models will have another architecture in the background. And what we use again, usually it is models that are trained to predict the next word in a sequence, but the next models probably will be trained on something else, on something that is more relatable to what we do. So the opportunity that I see is really that these models can be even more accurate and even more reasonable. Because if you ever use such models, and after half an hour, I think you realize how crazy they can get. And of course, we can put guardrails around those, but it's just a temporary solution, a hackish solution, if you want. In the future, such models will be designed to be more reliable and more efficient at taking decision and program tasks.
What are the most typical critique points that you see in terms of these large language models that we haven't covered yet?
Currently, what so there are situations in which the models generate an output that is really plausible. So at first glance, it appears good and plausible and everything. But then when you inspect a bit more carefully, you see that there is maybe just a tiny mistake, but the tiny mistakes completely destroys what you were looking for. And this can also happen with guidelines, for example, that you, in some cases, no, not always, but in some cases you have that the response is almost perfect, but there is only a tiny detail that is missing. And this, of course, makes you, yeah, makes you not completely satisfied with the outcome. And so, yeah, I think this is one of the most critical points to understand when the models are failing, because it can happen very abruptly. So they work, and at some point they just make a mistake, and then they start working again. So how to pinpoint these weak spots is not always easy. And of course, an evaluation can help, but for evaluating them, you need to build you need to have some data that you prepare, so that you can have examples of questions and answers, and you can carry out an evaluation of everything. And of course, the other thing you can do is to build guardrails around the model, so that you can check if the output is factually correct or not. So there are things to improve this, but with the current technology, with the current architecture, these models are doomed to make mistakes, because they work in a probabilistic manner. So we know that they are trained to predict the next
all
word.
Models make mistakes, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's how bad the mistakes are, how often the mistakes are, and especially, as we talked about already about it, what's the alternative solution?
Definitely.
What is a cost-benefit approach here?
Definitely. And then the other criticality that I see is how you interact with those. Because especially if you work inside organizations, you want your information to stay confidential.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to build appropriate firewall and nets that keep your information secure. And like for the normal colleague, the way they interact with these models is through a chat interface. And this might not be the interaction that you can have, especially if you want to query documents. Mm-hmm. It can be very cumbersome if every time you want to make a request, you have to copy paste section of a document, for example. Yeah. There are ways to improve this. And I think we should also invest on this, so that the interaction with the tools becomes easier and allows more people to use them and take advantage of those.
Thanks so much for that. For anybody that wants to get more into the theory of large language models and get some kind of introduction to it, do you have any references that you could recommend?
Yeah, so I think now it's a very good time for this, because we've been past almost a year and a half since this very big hype that came with ChatGPT. So now the situation is a bit more relaxed for how much it can be. And so, and also all these, I would say, resources have been distilled over time. So the things that really matter stayed, the things that were a bit more on a very high level or maybe too technical, became a bit, were not followed so much. So I think now we have a good place to start. And one resource that I really like is the website Deep Learning AI. Mm-hmm. And this website was founded by Andrew Ng, this guy behind Coursera. Yeah. And it's a very nice place to look for short courses, because Coursera offers courses that can go over for months. Instead, these short courses that they develop is a very nice way to get in contact with this technology. They can offer they offer short courses about prompting, about building such apps, or even more advanced stuff. So that could definitely be a place to start with. Then there are nice books about LLMs from the technical point. Like there are books, the one that comes to my mind now is from Sebastian Raschka, Building an LLM from Scratch, in which you are really guided in building your own LLM, starting from the very basic points. There are other books that speak more about the I would say the implications of these models on our work. But it also depends, I think, on the kind of person that wants to learn more. If you are more a technical person and would like to get in, to put your hands into the code and learn by coding, or if you would like more a top-down approach in which you first see the more general framework and then go more into the implementations later. But I would definitely recommend this deep learning AI to start with. Then the website of OpenAI has a very nice section about how to prompt their models, which I completely recommend. And one resource that I think it's very nice to consult, another website that is called the Prompt Engineering Guide. And maybe we can also provide these links.
We'll provide these links all in the show notes so you can easily find it. Yeah.
And this guide is really nice because it's like a living document in which you can find a lot of information about prompting and about the applications. So language models based applications that are built. And there are also some blogs that I found in which you find the most recent developments. Yeah, this is a bit the challenge because the landscape of these models is really
evolving pretty
fast. Very fast. So the best thing is really to check these blogs for what really matters. Also because otherwise you can drown under all this information.
That's why it will be really cool to have this kind of curated list in the show notes to this episode. Thanks so much, Pietro. That was an awesome discussion about large language models. I'm pretty sure this will not be the last episode that we have about this area, as you said, is growing, further evolving. There's lots of different areas in which things are improving, the interface, making it more specific for certain use cases, exploring all kind of different further opportunities with these. And yes, I completely agree. It will not take away our jobs. It will enhance our jobs. And I think it's more those that are not embracing the change and are not working with it, they will have a harder time finding a job or being higher performant at that job, because the people that actually embrace these kind of things can do a lot more in shorter period, and they shouldn't switch off their brain at the same time, of course. Any final things that you would like to listen to get from this episode?
Well, first, again, thanks a lot for having me here. I think it was really great to have the opportunity to speak and to tell my experience with these tools. And what I can recommend the listener is really to take some time to get some confidence with this. And it can be really from with also the very simple tasks, like if you have to draft an email or to draft an outline for a meeting, an agenda, if you want to summarize documents, to ask the model for some code, to brainstorm. So small things that you can completely control, but help you to get more comfortable with the models, so that you can start developing such gut feelings about what they can do and what they are not really able to do. Because what I see is that the more you use them, the more you develop this. It's really a gut feeling to see, this thing is fine, but this thing, no, doesn't smell right. So you have to really double check. And as you do that, you learn ways about how to best interact with them. So how to prompt them. All prompt engineering is about taking out the right information out of the model. So, and again, it is something that you develop by using them.
Well, I think it's the same way as we learn to Google.
Exactly. It's the same revolution,
yeah. Thanks so much again, and have a great time.
Thanks, Alexander. You too.
This show was created in association with PSI. Thanks to Rain and her team at VVS who helped with the show in the background, and thank you for listening. Reach your potential, lead great science, and serve patients. Just be an effective statistician.